Slowly, almost quietly, with a small colony sitting on the edge of known space, life there is simple. People wake up early, open their shops, walk through dusty streets, and live the kind of life where everyone knows everyone. Children run around. The market square, older workers fix machinery, and farmers bring in fresh crops from fields that stretch out toward the mountains. Most days are peaceful, predictable, and uneventful. The colony isn't rich, famous, or politically important. It's just a place where ordinary people try to live quiet, honest lives. Because the colony is so far away from major hubs, the people often feel like the rest of the galaxy has forgotten them. But they don't complain much. They have fresh air, a calm sky, and freedom to build their own future. Some families moved there to escape crowded cities. Others came because they wanted a second chance in life. Everyone had their own reasons, but they shared one belief: the colony was safe, and nothing truly dangerous would ever reach them. That belief changes on an evening that starts like any other. Lights flicker on across town as the sky slowly darkens. A soft wind moves through the streets, carrying the scent of plants from the hills. People talk about their day, eat dinner with families, and settle into their routines. No one expects anything unusual. Then, without warning, the ground vibrates. Not enough to knock anything over, but enough to make people pause. The lights flicker again, this time longer. A distant rumble passes through the air, so faint at first that many think it's thunder. But there are no clouds in the sky. Workers at the small communication tower are the first to see the alert. A sudden spike in energy readings flashes across their screens. They frown, confused. This region almost never shows activity. The technician on duty leans forward, tapping a few controls. The signal grows stronger. It's moving toward the colony. At first, they think it might be a passing ship, maybe a trade vessel that strayed too close. But the pattern doesn't match any civilian ship the tower has logged before. The technician tries to run an identification scan, but the system shows nothing. Only a blank silhouette moving fast. That's when the alarm activates. A soft but urgent tone echoes across the colony, surprising everyone. People open windows to listen, unsure of what's happening. Some rush into the streets, asking each other questions. Even the older residents, who've lived through minor emergencies, sense that something is different this time. Inside the communication tower, the technicians share one fearful look. Someone whispers, "This can't be right." They switch to the emergency channel and alert the colony's small council, who gather quickly in the command room. The air inside feels tight, tense, and heavy. Everyone stares at the large central screen. A long, thin shape glides across the display, unidentified, unregistered, and approaching far too fast. A hush fills the room. Someone finally speaks in. A shaky voice. "We need to send a distress signal." Another responds. "Who would answer it? We're too far." No one monitors this region, but they send it anyway. Not because they expect help, but because they have no choice. Out in the town, people stand in groups, peering up at the sky as the rumbling sound grows stronger. Pets run into their homes, children cling to parents, and the whole colony feels the same cold wave of fear. Not panic, not chaos, just the quiet awareness that something unknown is coming. The distress signal travels through deep space, leaving the colony behind. It passes through communication relays, data lines, and empty regions where no ships travel. Most countries and galactic councils don't even have receivers pointed in that direction. To them, the outer rim is empty space, unimportant, unprofitable, and too distant to monitor. So the signal drifts through the void, ignored by almost everyone, except Earth, far away. Back in human-controlled space, a monitoring station picks up the signal. The station isn't large or celebrated. It's a quiet building filled with consoles, screens, and a small staff who work long hours scanning regions most people never think about. They don't expect anything major. Most days they receive nothing but background noise. But the moment the distress signal reaches them, their system lights up. Operators rush to their consoles, scanning for origin, source, intensity, and meaning. They listen carefully to the short message. It's not dramatic, not long, just a few sentences sent by terrified voices explaining that something is approaching and they may not survive. The room goes silent. Humanity knows. That feeling being small, isolated, and unsure if anyone will answer. They have experienced history filled with moments where larger powers looked away. Maybe that's why the operators react the way they do. Not with hesitation, not with debates, but with urgency. They notify their superiors immediately. Reports travel upward through command structures. By the time the message reaches Earth's central command, the sun hasn't even risen in some places. But sleep doesn't matter. Meetings begin instantly. Officers gather around holographic displays. Analysts break down the signal waveforms. Strategists map the colony's location, estimate travel time, and check what units are closest. Everyone agrees on one thing. This wasn't a random signal. The colony is in real danger. No one argues about whether to intervene. No one says the colony is too far or too small. Humanity doesn't measure worth by size or political value. These are civilians. They need help. That alone is enough. The decision comes swiftly. Send a rapid response fleet. Commanders issue orders with calm but firm voices. Technicians prepare launch sequences. Pilots and operators rush into gear, moving with purpose and determination. Crews who are relaxing or finishing meals drop everything the moment alerts flash across their devices. They know the situation must be serious if Earth is mobilizing at this speed. Inside the hangars, massive doors slide open, revealing rows of sleek ships resting beneath bright lights. Engineers double-check every system. Fuel lines lock into place. Weapons teams calibrate defensive measures. Medical units load supplies. Relief teams gather equipment to support civilians. No one is shouting. No one is panicking. The atmosphere is focused, intense, and united. Meanwhile, the galaxy remains silent. Many nations don't even notice the human fleet preparing to launch. Those who do spot slight engine signatures assume it's a routine training exercise or a minor transport. Mission. Humanity doesn't announce anything to the other powers. They don't send diplomatic messages or request permission. They simply move because someone called for help. And that's enough. Back on the colony, the approaching shape grows clearer. People now see faint lights in the sky, blinking in ways that don't match normal ships. Parents hold their children tight. Shop owners close their doors. The colony's tiny defense team stands near the perimeter, scared but ready to protect whoever they can. Inside the communication tower, the technician who sent the distress call keeps staring at the screen, hoping for a reply. The radio remains quiet. Minutes pass. The tension becomes almost unbearable. Someone whispers, "Maybe no one heard us." But just before they lose hope, a different noise breaks through the speakers, soft at first, but unmistakably human. A coded message, short, precise, steady. Signal received. Hold position. Help is on the way. The technician freezes. Others gather around, eyes wide with disbelief and relief mixed together. For a moment, the weight on their shoulders lifts. People look at each other with new energy, as if a spark has ignited inside them. Someone says in a trembling voice, "Earth." They heard us. The colony doesn't celebrate. Not yet, but they breathe again. Far above them, beyond their sight, humanity's fleet activates engines. Lights surge across the hulls of their ships. Energy ripples through launch rails. A low, deep vibration fills the hangars as power systems reach full capacity. The countdown begins. 5.4, 3.2.1. The fleet launches into the stars, accelerating with a force that bends light around them. They travel faster than most governments believe possible. They cut through regions untouched for decades. They move with one purpose: to reach the colony before the threat does. The galaxy doesn't know it yet, but something incredible has started. A small colony cried for help, and humanity answered. Not slowly, not eventually, immediately, because in a lonely corner of the galaxy, people were afraid, and Earth refused to leave them alone. Far away from the colony, in the heart of human space, where Earth's command centers suddenly come alive. The moment the distress signal is confirmed as real, everything changes. What was a quiet night shift only minutes ago now feels like the center of the galaxy. The message is short, shaky, and filled with fear. But that's all Earth needs. Inside the main operations building, wide screens switch from routine data to a bright red alert banner. Officers rush in, some still adjusting their uniforms after being called from rest. Others arrive with tablets full of reports, moving fast but controlled. They are used to emergencies, but it's rare to receive one from such a distant, forgotten region. That alone makes everyone pay extra attention. A group of analysts sit around a circular table, tapping rapidly as they run scans on the signal. They listen to the message again, this time with the distortion cleaned up. They hear the fear in the voices. They hear the background noise, the trembling machines, the creaking structures, the faint sound of people in distress. All of it paints a picture they cannot ignore. A senior officer leans forward and asks calmly, "How long until something reaches them?" The analysts exchange glances. One of them finally replies, "We don't know who's approaching, but based on the speed and energy readings, it could be soon." Another officer nods. "And how long for us to reach them if we deploy immediately?" "Fast squadron could make it," someone says, "but it'll be tight." No one speaks for several seconds. The silence inside the room grows heavy. Then the highest-ranking commander stands, looks at the data again, and speaks with quiet firmness. "We're going." That one sentence changes everything. Within minutes, orders spread across Earth's bases. Alarms sound not loud and chaotic, but controlled tones meant to mobilize trained personnel. Pilots preparing for routine flights suddenly shift to full readiness. Engineers who were working on small repairs rush toward the hangars. Medical crews load supplies into transport containers, checking everything twice. Humanity doesn't waste a second. The rapid response fleet, often kept on standby for rare emergencies, activates. This fleet isn't the largest, but it is built for speed-fast engines, tight formations, and crews trained to move with precision. When emergencies strike, there is no time to think. Only time to act. Inside one of the hangars, a pilot tightens her suit while listening to updated flight briefings. She doesn't ask why they are going so far, or whether it's dangerous. She only asks, "How many civilians?" Once she hears the approximate number, she nods and picks up her helmet. Nearby, a group of engineers run final diagnostic scans. On a transport ship, one of them wipes sweat from his forehead and whispers, "Whoever they are, they must be terrified." Another responds, "Then we better move fast." Even though everyone is rushing, the atmosphere isn't chaotic. It is organized, controlled, and driven by purpose. Humanity has faced enough crises in the past to understand the value of preparation and discipline. Every person involved knows their role, and they perform it without hesitation. In the central command room, holographic displays show the galaxy in large glowing lines. The colony's location sits on the far edge, almost touching the outer void. It's a place most governments forgot long ago. But to Earth, forgotten places still matter. People still live there. That is enough. Strategists map the fastest possible route, avoiding slow regions and unstable space pockets. They calculate fuel burn, engine stress, and timing with incredible accuracy. Every second counts. Every small adjustment could decide whether the colony survives or falls before help arrives. A communications officer approaches the commander and says, "We sent confirmation." They know we heard them. "Good," the commander replies. Then they know they are not alone. Those words matter more than anyone realizes. Meanwhile, far above Earth's surface, the fleet begins moving into position. Dozens of ships drift quietly from maintenance docks, guided by slow-moving lights along the edges. Their engines glow softly at first, then brighten as power systems activate. The hum of energy vibrates through their hulls. Inside the medical ship, a young medic fastens supply crates to brackets while thinking about the colony. She imagines families hiding in their homes, wondering if they will survive the night. She doesn't know them personally, but it doesn't matter. Their fear feels real to her. She works faster. In another section, relief teams check emergency. Shelters, food kits, water units, and field equipment. They rehearse procedures out loud, even though they have done this many times before, just to make sure nothing is overlooked. Every person has the same thought. If they reach the colony in time, they have to be ready for anything. Earth does not prepare halfway. Back in the command room, the final countdown begins. Officers give nods of approval. Pilots send confirmation. Signals. Engines across the fleet roar to life, sending vibrations through the surrounding structures. The commander watches closely, waiting for the moment everything aligns. Then it happens. The fleet launches. One by one, ships shoot forward, leaving behind bright trails of light that cut across the dark sky. They accelerate faster and faster, engines pushing them toward the edge of human space. The quiet night around Earth turns into a symphony of power as the ships break formation, regroup in outer orbit, and prepare to enter high-speed travel. As the fleet disappears from Earth's sensors, a command room falls into a focused silence. The hard part is no longer theirs. Now everything depends on the pilots, crews, and specialists on board those ships. But humanity doesn't just send ships, they send hope. While the fleet speeds through space, the people on board feel the weight of responsibility. They know the colony is not a strategic asset. They know it isn't rich or powerful, but that never mattered. Every life matters. Hours pass. Stars stretch into long lines outside their viewports as the ships travel faster than anyone once thought possible. Many crews don't rest. They monitor systems continuously, review incoming data, and stay ready for rapid deployment. Some talk quietly, reminding each other why they're doing this. One person says, "Imagine how scared they are right now." Another replies, "Then let's make sure they don't stay scared for long." Humanity holds on to that thought. Meanwhile, in distant parts of the galaxy, a few monitoring stations belonging to other nations notice faint engine signatures. They detect brief waves of energy, then lose them just as quickly. Some analysts report it, but most governments dismiss it as routine testing. No one suspects that Earth is sending a rescue fleet across half the galaxy, because most galactic powers don't move like this. They plan for weeks. They negotiate, argue, and delay. But humans are different. They react with urgency because they know what it's like to feel alone. Back in the colony, people cling to hope. They received Earth's reply, but they don't know when help will arrive. Hours feel like days. Families sit together in silence, listening for any sign in the sky. Some try to stay strong for their children. Others whisper prayers or promises to themselves. The technician in the communication tower checks the signal log again and again. She keeps replaying Earth's message, not because she doubts it, but because she finds strength in those words. Each time she hears them, she breathes a little easier. Help is on the way. As time passes, the colony prepares for the worst, but also holds on to the possibility of rescue. They don't know how fast the fleet can travel. They don't know if the approaching threat is already near. All they know is that they are not forgotten. In the final stretch of their journey, humanity's ships prepare to drop out of high-speed travel. Systems heat up. Engines shift into controlled deceleration. Pilots tighten their grips on controls. They are almost there. Every second is filled with urgency. Every heartbeat feels like a countdown. But no matter how stressful a moment is, no one questions the mission. No one thinks about turning back. No one complains about distance or danger, because somewhere ahead, a colony is waiting. People who never expected anyone to come are hoping for a miracle. And humanity intends to be that miracle. The fleet closes in, and the stars around them begin to slow. Power builds across the hulls. The air inside the ships grows still, as if the universe itself is holding its breath. They are moments away from arrival. Everything they prepared for, every decision, every order, every second of speed, now leads to what they are about to face. Humanity didn't come with hesitation. They came with purpose. They came with heart. They came knowing they were racing against time, because when someone cries for help, humans don't debate the value of the person calling. They simply move, and they move like a storm. On the colony itself, where tension has risen so much that the air feels heavy even inside the safest buildings. People try to continue their routines, but nothing feels normal anymore. The sky is too quiet. The wind sounds different, every distant. Noise makes someone turn their head quickly, wondering if this is the moment the threat arrives. The colony's leaders, who were never trained for situations like this, gather in a small underground room with dim lights and old equipment. Their faces show tiredness, fear, and determination all at once. They keep checking the screens in front of them, hoping for updates from Earth, but deep down they know the help won't arrive instantly. The colony is far, almost too far. The delay between sending and receiving messages makes every minute feel longer than it really is. On the surface, the streets are quiet. Most shops are closed. People stay inside, trying to make their homes feel safe, even though they know walls and roofs won't stop what's coming. Parents sit with their children, trying to distract them with stories or small games. But even the kids can sense something is wrong. They ask questions their parents don't know how to answer. Will we be okay? When will help come? What's in the sky? And every answer is wrapped in fear. Outside the town borders, the colony's small volunteer defense group stays on duty. These aren't trained soldiers. They're regular people, farmers, workers, mechanics, trying to protect their home with the little equipment they have. Their gear is old, barely functioning, and not meant for real conflict. Still, they refuse to abandon their posts. They stand on hills and rooftops, scanning the horizon with cheap binoculars, hoping they'll see nothing for as long as possible. Every so often, they spot distant flickers of light in the sky. Not stars, not meteors, something else. Sometimes, the lights appear for a second, then vanish. Other times, they move slowly across the darkness, before disappearing behind clouds. Those lights are what make everyone nervous. In the communication tower, a single technician keeps tracking the moving objects. She zooms in, enhances, recalibrates, and rechecks the data over and over. The machines beep with low power warnings. The scans aren't strong enough to identify anything clearly. All she knows is that something is approaching the colony from the direction of deep space, and it is growing closer. The colony's leaders gather around her and ask for updates. She shakes her head. I can't confirm what they are, but their speed is increasing. Those words freeze the room. The leader of the colony, an older person with calm eyes, closes their hands together and sighs softly. We will prepare. The people, they deserve to know. The announcement goes out an hour later. People gather near public screens or tune into local frequencies. The leader talks in a gentle voice, trying not to raise panic. They explain that an unknown group of ships is approaching and that everyone should stay indoors unless instructed otherwise. Shelters are opened. Emergency kits are distributed. Volunteers go door to door checking on elderly residents. The entire colony moves as one community, fearful but united. Meanwhile, far above the colony, the real threat grows bolder. The Raider faction, drifting through space in small scattered fleets, begins gathering into a single formation. Their ships aren't elegant or advanced. They are rough, patched with mismatched parts, and designed for quick ambushers rather than open battles. They rely on intimidation more than strategy. For months they've been moving through outer sectors, searching for weak, isolated targets. When they discovered the colony, they believed they found the perfect one. No major government nearby, no military presence, no allies close enough to respond, just a peaceful settlement living quietly on the edge of nowhere. The raiders never expected resistance. Inside their ships, crew members talk confidently, almost casually, as they prepare their equipment. They don't expect a counterattack. They think the colony will surrender quickly. They assume the people will panic the moment they appear in the sky. That's how it usually works in small settlements, and that confidence is exactly why the situation grows more dangerous. The raiders send out small scouting craft to measure the colony's defenses. The craft fly high above the planet, scanning for weapon systems or military structures. They find almost nothing. Only old towers, weak shields, and basic communication arrays. The scouting teams report this information back. The raider leader laughs. They can't stop us. The fleet begins its final approach. Back on the colony, people hear a deep, distant hum moving across the sky. It's soft at first, just a low vibration, like a storm far away, but it grows louder by the minute. Windows shake lightly. Animals hide. Lights flicker again. Parents rush their children into underground shelters. Volunteers lock the doors and check every corner for supplies. In the command room, the colony's leaders stare at the screens as the unknown signals grow larger and clearer. It's them? Someone whispers. The technician runs another scan. The shapes are closer, now sharp, uneven, and unmistakably unnatural. It's not a meteor, she says quietly. These are ships. People inside the room look at one another, feeling their hearts pound harder. This moment is the one they've been dreading. That's it, then, the leader says softly. They've reached us. But even in fear, the colony shows courage. Some volunteers climb rooftop points to signal others. Teachers help guide children through corridor tunnels. Neighbors check on each other, making sure no one is left alone. And while everyone prepares, the small hope they carry that Earth might arrive in time glows faintly in their minds. They remind themselves of the message. Signal received. Hold position. Help is on the way. It becomes a quiet chant inside their hearts. Meanwhile, the raiders form a wide circle in the upper atmosphere, positioning themselves to make a dramatic entrance. Their leaders want to show power, to scare the colony into surrendering quickly. They activate large lights under their ships, making them visible from the ground. The colony watches in silence as dark shapes appear through the clouds. Some people gasp. Others hold on to each other. A few cry silently, but no one runs or screams. They stay together, Waiting. The raiders broadcast a message through the planet's communication channels. The voice is rough, commanding, and full of confidence. It demands the colony surrender all resources or face consequences. The colony's leaders listen quietly. Then the leader steps forward and responds with a calm voice. We are civilians. We have nothing to offer you. We only ask to be left in peace. The raiders reply with a cold message. You have 1 hour to decide. After that, the signal cuts. The colony falls into a deep silence. People gather in small groups, whispering. The leaders meet again underground, discussing everything they can do. But the truth is simple. They cannot fight this threat alone. They depend entirely on the hope that Earth's fleet will reach them in time. The volunteers outside watch the skies with shaking hands. They see the raider ships drifting above like dark shadows against the stars. One volunteer says quietly, Do you think Earth will make it? Another replies with a trembling voice, They said they're coming. Humans don't lie about these things. Inside the shelters, families huddle together. The children ask again, Will they save us? The adults force themselves to smile. Yes, they whisper. They are coming. The raiders slowly move into position for their final approach. Engines grow louder. Lights brighten. The hum in the air becomes a steady pulse that vibrates through the ground. The colony braces for impact, for confrontation, for whatever happens next. They feel small, fragile, and outmatched, but not abandoned. They hold on to the hope of Earth's arrival like a lifeline, and far away, beyond their sight, humanity's fleet is racing toward them at unbelievable speed. The raiders believe they will face no resistance. They believe the colony will break easily. They believe no one is coming. They are wrong, and they are about to learn just how wrong. The station felt strangely quiet after the alarms went silent. For a moment, it almost seemed peaceful, but everyone on the platform knew better. The calm was like the stillness right before a storm touches down. People stood near the windows, watching the dark stretch of space, waiting for anything to happen. They had already sent the distress signal. They had already whispered to each other that maybe no one would answer. They had already accepted that they were too far from the central routes, too unimportant, too forgotten. But hope is a stubborn thing. Even when people say they have none left, a tiny spark hides inside them, refusing to die. So they stood there, hearts silent but eyes alert, wondering if today that spark would finally go out. The platform's old scanners flickered with unstable readings. A few officers tapped the screens, thinking it was a malfunction. The numbers kept jumping, like something huge was approaching, but the scanners couldn't decide what it was. One officer leaned in closer, squinting. He checked the calibration again, then again, then once more, slower this time, as if his mind needed a moment to accept what he was seeing. Behind him, a group of civilians whispered nervously, Maybe. It's debris. Maybe the scanners are failing again. Maybe. It's them? Them was a word nobody wanted to say out loud because it meant the invaders, the ones who had attacked the outpost without warning, the same ones who had ignored every peace signal and fired on unarmed ships. Everyone on the platform remembered that moment, how the invaders appeared like a shadow in the sky and surrounded the station, like wolves circling a trapped group. That another officer finally broke the silence. It's not the enemy, he said. Slowly, people turned to him, confused. It's too fast, he said. Too controlled, and the formation is different. Someone breathed out shakily. Then who is it? He stared at the screen, voice barely above a whisper. It's them, humans. For a moment, the room froze. The officers stopped moving. The civilians stopped talking. Even the humming sound of the engines felt quieter. People tried to understand the words, but they sat there, Heavy and unreal. Humans, not the ones who lived so far from here, that most people had never seen them in person. The ones who were rumored to never abandon anyone. The ones who were known across the stars for arriving exactly when everyone believed they wouldn't. A slow ripple passed through the group. People turned back to the windows, confused but hopeful, trying to see for themselves. At first, the darkness outside looked empty, like always. But then, tiny silver points appeared, like dim stars beginning to shine. They were faint, almost invisible, but they grew brighter with each passing second. No one spoke. No one moved. They all watched the same view, and slowly, their disbelief melted into awe. The lights weren't stars. They were ships. Hundreds of them. No dash thousands. They moved in perfect formation, sliding through space with calm, controlled power. They didn't rush. They didn't wobble. They didn't scatter. They moved like a single being, like one giant wave that knew exactly where it was going. The officer at the scanner looked up again. They're descending. Someone behind him whispered, like a storm. And it was true. The fleet didn't just arrive. They fell toward the platform with purpose. Like lightning that finally decided to strike, people pressed their hands to the glass. Some covered their mouths. A few had tears in their eyes, not because they were scared, but because the feeling inside them was overwhelming. Relief, gratitude, shock, everything mixed into one emotion that tightened their chests. For so long, they had believed no help would come. So long, they had carried fear by themselves. And now, in one impossible moment, humanity filled the sky. One civilian, an older technician with trembling hands, whispered, "Why would they come for us? We're just an outer station. We're nobody." Another answered softly, "Humans don't measure worth by size. They come because someone called for help." The fleet slowed as it approached, their hulls glowing faintly with blue-white light. Even without sound, the scene felt thunderous, as if the very air inside the station vibrated with their arrival. The lead ship, a massive carrier shaped like a descending arrow, shifted position and moved closer to the platform. Its surface was smooth, reflecting nearby starlight like a storm cloud made of metal. Panels glowed across its sides, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. The ship wasn't flashy. It wasn't covered in dramatic angles or aggressive colors. It carried itself with a quiet confidence, the kind that didn't need to shout to be noticed. The civilians watched as smaller escort ships spread outward, creating a protective perimeter around the platform. Their movements were sharp and precise, like they had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. Inside the station control room, the officer in charge finally found his voice. "Open the communication channel." A tech scrambled to follow the command. The old system crackled, flickered, and then stabilized. A moment later, a calm human voice filled the room. "Platform 7, this is the United Earth Response Fleet. We received your distress signal. Stand by. We're securing the area." Simple words, straightforward, no dramatic speeches, but to the people listening, it felt like hearing solid ground beneath their feet after being lost at sea. Someone whispered, "They actually came." The officer responded into the mic, his voice shaking slightly. "This is Platform 7 Command. We're honored. We didn't think anyone could reach us." There was a pause on the human side, then the voice returned steady, reassuring. "You're not alone. Not anymore." The civilians lowered their heads. Some placed their hands on their hearts. A few wiped their eyes quickly, pretending they weren't crying. Outside the window, the human fleet shifted again. New lights appeared on the far horizon, enemy ships returning in large numbers. The invaders probably thought the platform was still weak, still isolated. They didn't know who had arrived. The officer stepped closer to the window, watching the shapes approach. "They're coming back," he murmured. Another officer whispered, "Do you think the humans can handle them?" The question hung in the air for only a moment, because the answer appeared immediately. The lead human carrier repositioned itself, angling slightly toward the incoming threat. Light gathered along its sides, rolling across the hull like the first. Flickers of lightning in a storm cloud. People in the station felt the shift. It wasn't a sound. It wasn't an explosion. It was something deeper, like the air tightening, like the moment right before thunder breaks open. One civilian spoke, softly. "They didn't just come to rescue us." The officer nodded. "No, they came to end this." The human fleet pulsed once, a silent wave of power, spreading through space. Then they descended fully, swift, controlled, unstoppable. Not just as soldiers, not just as rescuers, but as humanity, answering a call no one else had dared to answer. And every person on the platform knew one thing with absolute certainty: the storm had arrived. The moment the human fleet descended, the entire platform felt different. People who had been afraid to even breathe now stood taller, as if the air itself had become lighter. For hours they had waited in silence, thinking there was no hope left. But now they could see the human ships forming a shield between the platform and the incoming enemy. It was like watching a wall rise out of nowhere, strong enough to stop anything. The first wave of invader ships appeared on the edge of the viewing screens. Their hulls were dark, sharp, and built to intimidate. They came in fast, confident, certain that the platform was still helpless. They had chased these people for too long, and they expected another easy victory. But they didn't know who had arrived inside the station. The officers tried to maintain order, but they were just as stunned as the civilians. Nobody could look away from the windows. Every eye was fixed on the sky outside, where humanity stood ready like a silent promise. A soft hum filled the air as the human ships shifted into formation. It wasn't loud or scary. It was calm, controlled, almost peaceful. The lead carrier drifted forward, taking position at the very front of the defense line. Light rippled across its surface, not bright, but steady like a heartbeat, showing it was awake. Someone in the viewing deck whispered, "They're not moving to attack. They're waiting." Another person answered, "Humans don't strike first unless they have no choice." And it was true. Nobody on the platform had ever seen humans act recklessly. When they arrived, they didn't shout, they didn't threaten, they didn't show off. They simply stood there, letting their presence speak for them. The enemy ships drew closer, still unaware of the danger ahead. They accelerated, preparing to surround the platform again. The civilians flinched instinctively, remembering how helpless they had felt not long ago. The memory was still fresh, too fresh to fully forget. Then something unexpected happened. A wide communication signal flashed across the space. Everyone inside the station turned toward the main screen as a message appeared. It wasn't from the enemy. It was from the human fleet. Two short lines. "Platform 7, hold position. We handle this now. No dramatic speeches, no extra words. Just confidence. The invaders finally noticed the human formation and slowed their engines. Their ships spread out, forming an arc as they scanned the newcomers. Nobody in the station knew what the invaders were thinking, but it was clear they were confused. They thought the humans would be far away, disconnected, too distant to get involved. They never considered a full response fleet would arrive so quickly. Inside the station, the officer in charge quietly said, "They're trying to decide if they should attack." A civilian behind him asked, "Do you think they will?" The officer looked at the window, then at the scanner, then back outside. "They've already attacked before. I don't think they plan to stop." The invaders shifted again, this time more aggressively. Their ships spread like claws around the edges of space. The platform fell silent. Then, without warning, the invaders opened fire. Bright lines flashed across the sky, heading straight for the human front line. The civilians gasped and flinched, expecting explosions. But something else happened instead. The human ships didn't move. A soft glow appeared around them, like a transparent curtain of light. The enemy blasts hit the barrier and vanished instantly, like sparks hitting water. Not a single human ship shook. Not one bit of metal bent. A low murmur spread across the viewing deck. Someone whispered, "They didn't even flinch." Another added, "What kind of shield is that?" A child standing near the window whispered, "They're protecting us." Then, without sound or warning, the human formation shifted. They didn't lunge forward or scatter. They simply moved. With slow, precise steps, like a calm force pushing its way through a storm. The lead human ship released a pulse, not a weapon, not an explosion. Just a controlled wave of energy that spread across the battlefield. The invaders' engines flickered. Some lost formation. Others backed away slightly. It wasn't enough to destroy them, but it was enough to send a message. Inside the platform, one of the older technicians whispered, "They're giving them a chance to retreat." And yes, that was exactly what was happening. Humans always did that, even to enemies, but the invaders didn't fall back. They regrouped, engines glowing hotter, preparing for a second attack. This time, the human fleet reacted. The smaller human ships moved outward with speed that left streaks of light in their wake. They formed a wave-like pattern, advancing without hesitation. Civilians inside the platform leaned against the windows, breathless, watching something they had never seen before. That wasn't a battle. It was precision. Every human ship moved with the same rhythm, like a giant heartbeat controlling them all. They didn't fire wildly. They didn't swing around in chaos. Each movement was chosen, measured, almost graceful. When they finally fired, the blasts were soft, controlled lines of light designed to disable, not destroy. The invaders' weapons stopped firing. Their engines dimmed. Their ships drifted backward like leaves carried by wind. Inside the station, a young officer whispered, "They're not trying to kill them. They're just stopping them." Another officer nodded slowly. Humans don't aim to wipe out anyone. They aim to end the danger. The civilians watched with wide eyes, struggling to understand how something could be so powerful and so gentle at the same time. That the invaders tried one last push, gathering their remaining ships. They formed a tight cluster and accelerated again. It was clear they wanted to break through out of desperation, but the humans responded instantly. The lead carrier moved forward. Just slightly, just enough. It positioned itself between the invaders and the platform, blocking the entire path. Its hull glowed again, brighter this time, like a storm cloud lit up by lightning inside. And then a single pulse of energy spread across the battlefield. Not violent, not sharp, just a wave. Every invader ship froze. Engines offline. Weapons offline. Their entire fleet drifted in silence. Inside the platform, someone covered their mouth. Another held their chest. One person sat down, overwhelmed. A small voice from the back whispered, "It's over." For the first time in hours, in days, maybe even weeks, the platform felt safe. The human voice returned on the communication channel. "Platform 7, the threat is neutralized. We are sending teams to escort you to safe space. Prepare to receive landing assistance." No one spoke for several seconds, and the civilians reacted all at once. Some laughed, some cried, some hugged the nearest person without caring who it was. Some simply stared at the sky, whispering, "They came. They really came." The officers did their best to regain order, but excitement filled the entire station. People kept looking toward the windows, unable to look away from the human fleet, now gently hovering around them. The ships no longer looked like a stormed out now. They looked like guardians. The older technician from earlier wiped his glasses, smiling shakily. "I told you, humans never ignore a call for help." A group of young workers nodded, still stunned. "We thought we were alone," one said softly. The technician chuckled. "Nobody is alone when humans hear the signal." The docking lights turned on as the first human shuttle approached the platform. It moved slowly, carefully, almost respectfully. When it finally connected, a soft click echoed through the docking chamber. A few seconds later, the shuttle door slid open. People stepped back, watching quietly as the first human figure walked inside. No weapons raised, no harsh expressions, just calm focus and readiness to help. One of the platform workers whispered, "They really came for us." And the human representative answered gently, as if he had heard the whisper, "Of course we did. You called. We listened." The words were simple, but to the people on the platform, they meant everything. As more humans entered the station to help evacuate and stabilize things, the fear that once filled the place slowly faded away. The civilians moved with them, trusting them without hesitation. The officers guided the process, and the human teams followed with quiet efficiency. For the first time in a long time, people felt safe enough to breathe deeply. Outside, the giant human fleet hovered like a protective wall, watching over everyone. It didn't leave. It didn't lower its guard. It stayed until every single person on that platform was secure. As the evacuation continued, someone on the viewing deck whispered one last line, almost like a prayer carried by relief. They thought no one would come, but humanity descended like a storm, and everyone who heard it knew it was true.